The Rothschilds.
20th century with 2 world wars, high taxation, 44 houses, only one really remains.
In the 19th century, when governments needed money to fight wars, build empires, or save their economies, they didn't call other governments. This family financed wars on both sides, funded railways across continents, helped governments avoid bankruptcy, and even helped Britain buy the Suez Canal, one of the most important trade routes in the world. At one point, a single member of this family controlled a huge part of the British economy, and governments depended on their loans to survive. Some called them financial geniuses.
They were involved in finance and politics.
Others believed they were the most powerful family in modern history. This is the story of the Rothschild dynasty, the banking family that helped finance the modern world. But the moment that really showed how powerful the Rothschilds were came in 1875. In 1875, one financial deal quietly changed the balance of global power. The British government wanted to buy a large stake in the Suez Canal, the most important trade route between Europe and Asia. Whoever controlled the canal controlled the route to India, the most valuable part of the British Empire. But the British government didn't have the cash available fast enough. So Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli turned to the Rothschild Bank in London. Within days, the Rothschilds provided an enormous loan, allowing Britain to buy the canal shares before any other European power could react. A private banking family had just helped the British Empire secure one of the most strategic assets in the world. It was a perfect example of how the Rothschilds operated. Governments made decisions, but the Rothschilds financed them. And this was just one of many moments where the Rothschilds influenced world events. If you're interested in powerful families and hidden influence, this channel is exactly for you. The Rothschild Empire didn't start with empires and canals. It started in a small house in Frankfurt. The Rothschild Empire began in the 18th century in the German city of Frankfurt with a man named Mayer Amschel Rothschild. He was not a king, not a general, and not a politician. He was a banker. But he understood something very early. Rulers always needed money, especially in times of war. Mayer started by lending money to local princes and aristocrats. Over time, he became the personal banker of one of the richest rulers in Germany, managing enormous amounts of money on his behalf. But his real genius was not just making money. It was building a system that would outlive him. Instead of keeping the business in one city, Mayer sent his 5 sons to the most important financial capitals in Europe: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. It was the beginning of an international banking network that Europe had never seen before, and this decision would change the financial world forever. Mayer Rothschild's greatest decision was simple but revolutionary. He turned his family into an international banking network, but they didn't operate like normal banks. They operated like a private financial intelligence network. They had their own couriers, their own information routes, and their own communication systems. In some cases, the Rothschilds received news about wars and political events faster than governments. Information meant one thing: advantage. They could buy government bonds before victories and sell before defeats. By the early 1800s, the Rothschild family wasn't just a banking family anymore. They had become the most powerful financial network in Europe. And soon, this network would be used for something much bigger than banking. The real source of Rothschild power was not ordinary banking. It was government debt and war finance. During the Napoleonic Wars, European governments needed enormous amounts of money to fund armies, weapons, and logistics. The Rothschild network provided loans to multiple governments across Europe, sometimes even to opposing sides of the same conflict. After the wars ended, governments still owed massive debts, and the Rothschild banks managed, refinanced, and profited from those debts for decades. They financed railway construction across Europe, funded industrial projects, and provided emergency loans to governments during financial crises. In some cases, entire national economies depended on their credit. In the 19th century, if a government needed money quickly, there was one place they went first: the Rothschild Bank. And this is where the Rothschild story becomes really powerful, because they were no longer just bankers. They were financing governments and shaping economies. The Rothschilds didn't just finance wars and governments, they financed the industrial world itself. As their wealth grew, the Rothschilds expanded far beyond banking. They invested in the industries that were building the modern world. They financed railway networks across Europe, invested in mining companies, and became major players in the gold trade when currencies were still tied directly to gold reserves. Controlling gold meant controlling liquidity, and liquidity meant power. Later, they became major investors in the diamond mines of southern Africa, helping finance what would become the De Beers Diamond Empire, which, for a time, controlled most of the global diamond supply. They also invested in wine estates in France, industrial companies, insurance businesses, and international trade. By the late 19th century, the Rothschilds were not just bankers, they were investors in the infrastructure, resources, and industries that powered the global economy. But no financial empire lasts forever. But the 20th century nearly destroyed the Rothschild empire. The Great Depression, financial crises, and political instability weakened many European banks. Then came the rise of Nazi Germany. Because the Rothschilds were a prominent Jewish banking family, they became direct targets. Their banks were seized, assets confiscated, and family members were arrested or forced to flee Europe. Branches of the family lost enormous parts of their businesses during World War II, especially in Austria, Germany, and France. The financial empire that had dominated the 19th century was suddenly fighting for survival. After the war, the world had changed. Global financial power moved from Europe to the United States, and governments relied less on private banking families and more on central banks and global institutions. The Rothschilds survived, but their era of absolute financial dominance was over. And yet, the Rothschilds didn't disappear. Today, the Rothschilds are no longer the visible financial rulers of Europe like they were in the 19th century. You don't see them on the front pages like modern billionaires such as Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. But that doesn't mean they disappeared. Over generations, the family wealth was spread across many branches: trusts, banks, vineyards, mining investments, and financial institutions. Instead of one single billionaire, the wealth is distributed across a large family network with investments all over the world. Estimates of their total wealth vary widely, and this uncertainty is exactly why so many myths and conspiracy theories exist around the family. What is certain, however, is this. For over 200 years, the Rothschild name has been connected to banking, governments, and global finance. So the question is not whether they were rich. The question is how much influence they really had. The story of the Rothschilds is not just the story of a rich family. It is the story of how money, war, politics, and industry shaped the modern world. They financed governments, supported empires, invested in railways, gold, and diamonds, survived revolutions, world wars, and financial crises, and managed to remain wealthy for over 2 centuries, something very few families in history have ever achieved. Were they simply brilliant bankers who understood finance better than anyone else? Or were they in the right place at the right time during the biggest wars and industrial expansion in history? What do you think? Were the Rothschilds financial geniuses, empire builders, or just very lucky? Let me know in the comments.